sure that's what Daddy's for good times and bad times. I'll be by your side forevermore. Oh, that's what Daddy's for. Now, as you hear those words, can you perhaps also hear God singing to the children that He loves? See, I do believe that He instilled in us certain feelings to help us understand Him. And what better example of that is there than fatherly love, right? And so I was very intentional when choosing the title for today's talk. And that title is, What Does Dad Need from You? See, the beauty in that title is that it carries with it a dual meaning, right? And you could think, what does my natural dad need from me? What do I need from my kids? What does my dad, Levi Hollis, need from me? Or you could also hear it as, what does my heavenly dad need from me? And I'm going to tell you right now, both things align wonderfully well if you take a look at it. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at it. And today I'm going to give you a choice. I'm going to give you a choice. That's what dads love to do. Dads love to give choices. And the choice is yours. I'm going to use the name Dad throughout this talk. And that gives you the choice of which way you want to hear it. Do you want to hear, what does my natural dad need from me? What does my heavenly dad need from me? It gives you the choice. It also indicates the intimate relationship that I strive to have and deepen with my heavenly dad. So, with that, let's go ahead and talk about, what does Dad need from you? And now I realize, in presenting that title, I have now released an elephant into the sanctuary. Don't worry, Rod, I'll clean up after.
Okay.
See, I'm sure you've all heard the idiom, we must address the elephant in the room. And that elephant is that big looming thing that everybody sees but nobody wants to talk about. Well, in this case, that elephant is Isaiah 66, verses 1 and 2. Are we able to get those verses on the screen? We are. They might be a little small. You know, whenever I was a kid growing up in a Methodist church, about every Sunday, the reverend would get up and he'd say, every good Christian should bring his Bible to church. I'm not sure every good Christian should spend time in the Word. Do you have to bring it to church? Well, you might have been thinking about cases like this, where it's a little bit hard to read. And we also can't present from here. So if you have your Bible, please feel free to follow along. If not, we're going to read the Word. See, in Isaiah 66, it says, the Lord says, actually, heaven is my throne and earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you would build for me? And where is the place of my rest? For all those things my hand has made, and all those things exist. This is what Dad's telling you. Basically, Dad's telling you, look, everything you have came from my hand, so what is it that I would need back from you? Seriously. Now, if I were to put myself into this scripture with me and my natural dad, I'd say, wait, you're saying that everything I have now came from your hand? Hold on a second. I worked hard in school. I worked hard at my job. I worked hard in my career to bring home the clothes that are on my back, the food that's on my plate. So don't tell me that my dad, who passed away over 3 decades ago, that all the stuff came from his hands? No. This is the fruit of my labor. This is what I did. I did this. See, those are the words of an arrogant man, right? But not just an arrogant man, an ignorant man. Because I'd have to ignore that my dad was protecting me from before I was born. Do you think I would have been around today if he wasn't protecting me? No. My dad provided for me before I could provide for myself. And without those, I needed those provisions to eventually prosper. My dad poured into me so he could prepare me for my best life. Teach me how to work hard. So all that boasting I did about, I work hard, I work hard, I work hard. Well, that's a fruit of my dad working in me. So if I were to say that all the stuff that I have now, this prosperity that I'm enjoying today, that's all of my hands, think again. Think again. Dad had a major hand to play. I wouldn't have these things if it weren't for him. So we go back to ask the question, well, if everything I have comes from him, why would he need anything back from me? Maybe the question is flawed. Or maybe the question is just incomplete. Because whenever someone says, I need something, there really should be a follow-on question. Why? And I tell you right now, the thing that Dad needs from you is your obedience. But keep in mind, he does not need you to do what he says. He does not need you to follow his guidance for his existence. What you do does not change Dad. I mean, if what you did changed Dad, he wouldn't be much of a dad now, would he? But why? Some people will say, well, Dad's just a control freak. He just wants you to do what he says. Well, here's the thing. First of all, dads, like I said at the beginning, dads like to give you choices. They like to give you choices, sit back and watch you make good decisions from the guidance that he's provided. I mean, that's what he delights in, natural or heavenly, watching his kids make good decisions. So, if I were to take it a step further, Heavenly Dad, who do you think gave you your free will? I mean, if he wanted to control you, he never would have given you that free will to begin with, right? I think about all the way back to the beginning of mankind. And Eve in the garden, he had one rule. One rule. Don't put that in your mouth. Don't eat that. Now, if he truly wanted to control Eve into compliance, he might have done something like construct a 50-foot tall electric fence covered with razor wire around that tree, right? And that's hilarious to me, because if you think about it, can you imagine the enemy trying to tempt a naked Adam and Eve to climb an electric fence covered with razor wire to get some fruit? I think they both look at him and say, that fruit don't look that good. No, we don't need that fruit. But no, he left that fruit accessible, giving them the choice. He's not trying to control you into compliance. So then why does he need you to do what he says? 2 Timothy gives us the word on that. I'll help you out. All scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, thoroughly equipped for every good work. Why does Dad need you to do what he says? Why does Dad need you to follow his guidance? It's to help you prosper. It's to help prepare you and equip you for every good work. It's to prepare you for your best life. It's not for his sake. It's for your sake. He's giving you guidance for your sake. And that's really the bottom line of what Dad needs from you. Dad needs you to follow his guidance. Why? So you can prepare for your best life. And the thing is, what he wants for you, it's kind of in there, right? What he wants for you is your best life. He wants you to prosper. That's what he wants for you. But let's take this a step further. Let's ask the question, what does Dad want from you? Right? And what he needs is really simple. We've already established that Dad protected you, that he provides for you. We already established that he has poured himself to prepare you for prosperity. say in return, because that would imply that he was not altruistic in his giving. He is altruistic in his giving. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But what he wants from you, I submit to you that there are 4 rungs of things that Dad wants from you. The very bottom rung is acknowledgement. Just acknowledge. And whenever I say acknowledgement, I'm not talking about some cheesy Dad of the Year recognition. No, I'm saying just don't take Dad for granted. Don't take him for granted. That's the very least you could do with all the things he's done for you. Just don't take him for granted. Now, there's a passage that we read in this church more than any other verse. A lot more. In fact, Mark just read it again. It's 1 Corinthians 11. Yes, 24 through 26. See, the thing is, in these 3 verses, 24, 25, and 26, in 3 verses, Christ calls the disciple into acknowledgement 2 times. Break the bread, eat it, do this in remembrance of me. And I love how Mark put it. He says, it's not whenever you get dressed or whenever you go swimming or whenever you have vegetables. I mean, if I only acknowledge God or if I only acknowledge Dad whenever I ate vegetables, I wouldn't acknowledge him very much, would I? But we're called to acknowledge him every time we do these essential, basic things in life. All the time. The second time is whenever you drink, whenever you partake of the cup, do this in remembrance of me. And I'm going to tell you right now, he's not saying, oh, remember the good times that we had. He's not saying, oh man, remember Pete, that one time we went out fishing and we caught all those fish? Oh yeah, Jay, man, that was the best summer. It's not that kind of remembrance. He's calling you to remember the sacrifice he made for you. In fact, it says so right there in verse 24. In verse 24, it says he broke the bread. Take, eat, and says, this is my body which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. You put it all in context, you realize, he wants me to repeatedly continue to acknowledge his sacrifice. I'm going to tell you something right now. Every loving dad, there is not a single loving dad who has not died for his kids. And now you're looking at me like crazy because, my dad's right over there. My dad's over there talking. My dad's sitting right beside me. What do you mean he died for me? No, but the reality is, in our faith, we realize that we have to die to ourselves daily. Pick up our cross and die to ourselves daily to follow what Dad would have for us, to follow Dad. What does that mean, really? That means that we have desires in our hearts, we have desires in our flesh, and those desires don't go away. So the only way to not follow those desires is to take that part of us that wants that thing and put that part of us to death. We've got to kill off that part of us and not pursue the things that we desire, that misalign, that do not align with what Dad would have for us. It's called dying to yourself daily. And I submit to you that dads do this for their kids also. Because there are things that every dad wants. And he looks at it and he realizes, well, if I pursue that, it does not align with the needs of my child. And so I put myself to death, put that part of myself to death. And that desire doesn't go away. It keeps coming back. So I have to keep dying to myself so I can better serve my kids. Don't underestimate what Dad has done for you, either one. Just acknowledge it. Just don't take it for granted. Just don't take it for granted. One of the things I want to point out to you in this passage is that Christ does not call the disciples into gratitude. I mean, he exemplifies gratitude because before he breaks the bread, he says, he gave thanks. But whenever he says, do this in remembrance of me, he doesn't say, do this in remembrance of me and say thank you. He just says, calls you into acknowledgement. Now, I'm going to give you a life tip here. This is more psychology than theology. Just make that clear. Guilt time, right? Think about it. Whenever someone does something to offend you, you see this happen with them. I'm sure you guys don't do this. You guys don't do this. But someone is offended, and they say, you need to apologize for that. You need to apologize for that. Okay, sorry. Demanding the apology does not drive guilt into that person's heart. When you demand the apology, what you get back is a reflection of your own anger, but it does not put the guilt into their heart. Does that make sense? Another way to look at it is, if you feel guilty about something, someone else could not make you feel guilty. That guilt is in your heart already. They may expose it, but they can't put it in. Same thing with gratitude, but with gratitude, it's a little worse. It's a little worse. Has anyone ever done something nice for you, and you didn't say thank you quick enough? And they say, you're welcome. You know, the hand goes on the hip. You need to say thank you for that. Really? Okay, thank you. See, in that case, yeah, you get back a reflection of your anger, but you're not getting back sincere gratitude. In fact, what's worse is that whenever you press to get that thank you, you may also press and stamp out whatever gratitude might have been in the heart to begin with. And worse, if that thank you was why you were doing it, if that thank you was why you were doing something nice and good, then that thank you is the only reward that you will ever receive. To be altruistic in your giving, to be altruistic in your good doing, you must do these things without expecting anything in return. I got a challenge for you. Christmas season is coming up. Have you ever considered giving somebody a gift without letting them know where it came from? Just being nice without needing the acknowledgement or gratitude or thank you in return. That would be an altruistic gift. Now, gratitude is the second rung of things that Dad wants from you. And I can say this most assuredly, at least as a natural dad. I don't typically ask the kids, you need to thank me for that. But whenever they do, it is so heartwarming. I'm going to tell you right now, I am not someone who collects greeting cards. I don't. I appreciate receiving them, I do. Whether they're funny or sentimental, I love receiving greeting cards. But when the occasion for the card has come and gone, that card to me should just be discarded. And that is of no disrespect to the person who gave me the card. I do hope, I do pray that I have the gratitude to express back to them, thanks for this card. But I don't collect them. But a few years ago, I received this card. And it says, for every thoughtful thing you've done, for every loving thing you've done, for every happy smile you've given, you are loved that much more. From your grateful daughter. I don't collect greeting cards, but that card is still on my desk today. Yeah, Dad wants your gratitude. Now, the next thing on the rung, on the next rung that he wants, it's a big step. It's a big step, but it's a big thing for Dad, too. And that big thing is he wants a relationship with you. He wants a relationship with you. Yeah, I love that we have a relationship class going on right now, because relationship is so key to who we are. It's how we connect. Without relationship, we're completely disconnected. But someone may ask, well, what does it mean to have a relationship with Dad? And the thing is, it's simple. It's time-based. It's time-based. You see, time is the thread that weaves the fabric of relationship. If you're not spending time, you don't have relationship. So, hold on a second. You're telling me that I've got this dad who has protected me, he's provided for me, he has poured into me to prepare me for my best life, He has sacrificed for me and has even died over and over and over again for me. And all he wants to do is hang out with me from time to time? That's a good deal. That's a really good deal. You get all that, and all you have to do is hang out with Dad? Well, what does that look like? Well, during this hanging out together, spending time together, you're asking questions of each other. You don't have to do anything elaborate like going to great amusement parks or going on grand vacations. And all that stuff is great. But the key thing is to spend time getting to know each other. Ask questions of each other. Have conversation. And in that, you get to understand each other's nature. And whenever you understand Dad's nature, then his decisions are no mystery to you. In fact, if you understand Dad, and if he does say no to something, you already knew. If you're expecting something that was against his nature, then you are the co-author of your disappointment, right? Because you knew he was going to say no. Spend time with Dad. Have a relationship with Dad. But even so, now, I hear a barking dog. Wow. So many things have been coming against this message here this morning, but we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. Despite all the benefits, all the reasons why to have a relationship with Dad, we actually see several reasons why people come up with not having a relationship with Dad. One of the very first reasons that people come up with is, I just don't believe in Dad. And a lot of times what that means is, I believe in myself more than I believe in Dad. Now, the thing that Dad has to realize at this point in time is that when someone is committed to disbelief, and both of those are different levels of disbelief, right? When someone is committed to disbelief, then there's no amount of evidence or logic that will change their heart. But that does not change Dad. Dad still loves you. Even if you turn away and say, I'm going to believe in myself more than I believe in you right now, Dad, he still loves you. It may change your relationship with him, but it doesn't change Dad. Another argument that we get is, well, you know what? If Dad wanted a relationship with me, he'd try harder. You've all heard that, right? Dad should try harder. Oh, wait a second. Dad protected you, provided for you, poured into you, sacrificed for you, died for you, and you think he needs to try harder? Seriously now, if all that was not enough, nothing's going to be. Nothing's going to be enough for you. But what's worse is that he has extended grace to you, right? And now you're insisting on merit? Those scales don't balance. They're not supposed to balance, but it also doesn't make sense. You know, third argument that we have for not having a relationship with Dad is that we disagree. We just don't see eye to eye. Like, okay, so to me, that's like the most dysfunctional thing I've ever heard. If I was unable to have a relationship with someone who disagrees with me, I wouldn't be married. I think about it. My wife and I, we disagree a lot. In fact, we cannot see eye to eye on anything. It's physically impossible for us to see eye to eye on anything. She's 6 inches shorter than me. But aside from that, we are of one accord in Christ. And then outside of that, in times that we disagree, the first step is to try and understand each other. But that doesn't always work. After that, we simply have to say, you know what? We're going to agree to disagree. And then we're going to move on in our relationship in love. But we don't cut off the relationship because we don't agree with each other. Another argument that we receive is, well, Dad didn't give me what I asked for. And this is what I call SBS, spoiled brat syndrome. And I can talk about that so critically because I have suffered from SBS myself. More recently times when I have said, oh, Dad, you didn't. I got down on my face and prayed and begged and pleaded for you to deliver something to me, and you just flat out said no. In fact, you didn't even say no. You just didn't deliver it. Wait, what? Oh, I can't have a relationship. I can't even talk to you anymore. But here's the thing. As I turn and walk away from Dad to pursue this thing that I think that I need, whether you're walking down that path for a day, for a year, for a decade, you get down that road, you realize, this isn't what I really want. Man, I long for my dad. And you think, I've gone 10 years down the road. I'm going to have to go 10 years back, and you turn around, and he's standing right there with open arms, with a big old smile. And you're like, I thought I was so far from you. No, you weren't. Dad never stopped loving you. Your decision to turn away and walk away, that changed your relationship, but that did not change Dad. He still loves you. And just like the prodigal son, when you come back, he's there with open arms. He's saying, let's slaughter the fattened calf and throw a party. You're back. I got my child back. That's what he's feeling when you come back. But you do have to turn away from that thing that took you away to begin with. Because otherwise, you're just coming back for his stuff. You know, there is a verse in Hebrews 11 and 6 that kind of addresses all of these issues that I just talked about, all these arguments. It says, but without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So first of all, with the ones of us who say, I believe in myself more than I believe in Dad, you know, that's addressed by the very first part of this. If you don't believe in him, if you don't have faith in him, there's no point going to him at all, because you're always going to serve yourself. All right? But then the rest of it, as we see, Dad should work harder. Dad doesn't agree with me. Look, Dad wants to spend time with kids who want to spend time with him. Dad wants to favor those who want to spend time with him. Diligently seek him. If you're not seeking him, you're just seeking his stuff. And he's going to see right through that every time. There is a fifth argument here that's kind of difficult for us to talk about. And it's the argument that I don't care. I don't care about having a relationship with Dad. The reason why this is difficult to talk about, because it indicates the influence of the enemy. Let's talk about the enemy just for a moment. You see, the enemy was not always the enemy. In fact, before mankind, before us kids were created, Dad and the enemy were tight. In fact, he wasn't even called the enemy. He was named Light. But whenever he started doing things that he was not supposed to be doing, when he started thinking things and planning things he was not supposed to be thinking, he was banished. He was cast out. He was cast aside. And from that moment on, he has only wanted to get back at Dad. But he realizes the way to get back at Dad is through his kids. Separate the creator from the creation. That's how you hurt the creator, right? And so you go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and you think about it. That snake had nothing to gain for tempting Eve to eat the fruit. Nothing to gain, except doing so would separate the kids, separate the creation from the creator. But today it's going on at an even larger scale. The world is full of temptations, things that you want, right? And those desires don't always align with what Dad would have for you. Dad, again, he's trying to prepare you for your best life. And sometimes that means denying yourself something right now. But the enemy comes by and says, no, you can have that thing that you want. You can have it. In fact, he validates those desires, even helps you get them. And in doing so, get this, he makes Dad look like the enemy. He vilifies Dad. Because Dad's trying to... Here, John says it better than I do. In John 7, verse 7, hates me, Dad said. It hates me because I testify of it that its works are evil. The enemy is very good at vilifying Dad, at turning Dad into the villain, because Dad doesn't always agree with you. Dad doesn't always deliver what you want. But the enemy will. And in that, we have this issue of why we don't want a relationship with a dad who has given us so much. And so you need to ask yourself, am I an agent of the enemy? Even from time to time. I know I've spent my own time there, and I'm glad to be back in Dad's arms. So, the highest role that Dad's looking for, that he wants from you, the book calls it being glorified, but we'll also call it revering Dad. Okay? And some of us natural dads might start to say, I really don't need my kids to glorify me. I really don't. I'm humble. I don't need them to do that. But I submit to you, it is something that you want, and I'm going to tell you a true story that will help you see that. It was 1991. I lost my dad to colon cancer in 89, 2 years before this. And so I'm sitting in a movie theater. I'm watching this movie called Hook. It's with Robin Williams playing a dad by the name of Peter Panning. You see the reference there? Peter Panning, Hook. And the enemy was played by Dustin Hoffman, Captain Hook. And Captain Hook, for some reason, he had his beef with the dad. And so he went and he kidnapped the son. Separated the dad from the son, right? But what the enemy did not count on is that the dad was willing to go to the ends of the earth to fight for his son. And literally, he went to Never Land. If that's not the end of the earth, I don't know what is. And so he gets there, and the dad learns how to fight again. He learns how to fly again. He gets that spirit in his heart, and then he goes to the enemy's battleground to fight for and get his son back. And while he's there, you see the son now looks just like the enemy. He's got the pirate's hat and the pirate's wig and the pirate's coat. He's got the ruffly shirt, the swashbuckling shoes. He's got the whole thing. He looks just like the enemy. But Dad's fighting for him anyway. And while he's fighting, the boy looks up and sees Peter Panning fighting for him. He says, "That's my dad. That's my dad." See, there are 2 times in cinematic history where I actually shed a tear because of something on screen. The first time was about 10 years earlier when I saw Han Solo getting frozen in carbonite. That was traumatic for an 11-year-old. It really was. But the second time was this scene right here, because as I see this boy look up and say, "That's my dad," I realized in that moment that I had spent 2 decades on this earth with my dad and never once showed him that kind of reverence. After all that he had done for me, I never once. That's my dad. And my opportunities were gone. He had passed away 2 years before. If I could have, I would have gone home from then and said, "Dad, you are awesome. Thank you." He would be like, "What are you talking about?" I just finally came to the revelation. Thank you. Now, 1 Corinthians 10 and 31 kind of provides this sentiment. "Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God." Glorify Him. Revere Him. There's another movie reference that I'll make right now. I'm not going to tell you the title of this movie because it does have some language to it, but I'll give you a hint. Mel Gibson is a fairly recent movie. Mel Gibson is the father. And he's talking about his son. His son's all grown up now. Mel Gibson says, as my son was growing up, he had all these heroes. And I wished to just once, picture of health, but at the same time, I'm doing okay. I'm going to be around for a very, very long time. But if I had to deliver a dying message to my kids, that message would be, I want you to know that I protected you. I want you to know that I provided for you. I want you to know that I poured myself out into you to prepare you for your best life. I want you to know that I've sacrificed you and I've died over and over again for you. I want you to know these things because that's how you'll know that I love you. I want to be in a relationship with you so that you will know. That is how you will know how much I love you with every breath of my lungs, with every beat of my heart, with every fiber of my being. I love you, I love you, I love you. And I see God looking down upon us, pouring out his heart very much like that to each and every one of us. I want to be in a relationship with you because that's how you know that I love you. That's how you know that I love you. For good times and for bad times, I'll be by your side forevermore. Oh, that's what Daddy's for.